life without parole.
Jalil Smith Riley had pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty, then tried to change his plea and take the case to trial, only to collapse in shock when he found out that request is denied and he'll never get out of prison. It was a legal roller coaster and an emotional one for the families of his victims.
Him and Porsche was always together. They were young, they were in love, and they were happy.
In November 2013, Porsche Brooks was shot and killed. Her boyfriend, Aaron Martin, shot and wounded during an attempted robbery in Norwood. After a 2-year investigation, Smith Riley was tracked down out of state and confessed. Today, he apologized and asked that he be given a chance to come home from prison one day.
He wants to come home, but we want Porsche back. We can't get Porsche back. That's not an option for us.
He took that from me. He took it from all of us. He ruined my life. He not only killed her, but he killed me mentally, emotionally. I have to deal with life without Porsche, so he should deal with life without parole.
A life sentence of loss for Porsche's family. Perhaps a life sentence of injury for Aaron Martin, who survived being shot in the head.
I can accomplish certain things, but I have to change my goals to accommodate how I am right now.
Jalil Smith Riley's attorneys at the end of today's hearing let the judge know he does intend to file an appeal.
Today was supposed to bring closure. After 3 years of waiting, Sharon Brooks was finally going to witness justice for her murdered daughter. Then something happened that left everyone in the courtroom stunned. Welcome to our coverage of a case that shocked Cincinnati. A young couple with their whole lives ahead of them was attacked while sitting in a car. Porsche Brooks lost her life. Aaron Martin survived with a bullet permanently lodged in his head. This afternoon, what was planned as a routine sentencing took an unexpected turn when a grieving mother confronted her daughter's killer in a way no one anticipated. Court reporter Deborah Dixon captured the moment that changed everything. The key question surrounding today's proceedings at the Hamilton County Courthouse was whether Jalil Smith Riley would succeed in withdrawing his guilty plea. He had previously admitted to murdering Porsche Brooks and attempting to kill her boyfriend. Judge Kubicki quickly addressed this matter, firmly denying Smith Riley's motion to change his plea. His conviction for both murder and attempted murder stands. What followed was emotional testimony from both families, the Brooks family mourning their daughter and the Martin family describing how the attack forever altered Aaron's life. The shooting occurred in November 2013 in Norwood, leaving Aaron with permanent disabilities and taking Porsche's life. We were inseparable. They were young in love, building a future together. He destroyed that future. She was beautiful inside and out. Her heart, her mind, her spirit were all extraordinary. She was a sister, an aunt, a cousin, a granddaughter, and my daughter. He took her from me. He took her from all of us. The sentence handed down to Jalil Smith Riley was life imprisonment without possibility of parole. Had the judge permitted him to withdraw his guilty plea and proceed to trial, Smith Riley might have faced a death penalty if convicted by a jury. The atmosphere in the courtroom grew heavy as Sharon Brooks approached the witness stand. Everyone watched in silence as she carried a small urn, the remains of her daughter Porsche. Even Jalil Smith Riley couldn't look away. For nearly 2 years during court proceedings, he had maintained a cold, emotionless demeanor, but faced with a physical reminder of the life he had taken, something within him broke. "I brought my daughter with me today," Sharon announced with remarkable composure. She deserves to witness justice being served. The judge permitted this unusual presence, a victim reduced to ashes confronting her killer in the most direct way possible. The courtroom watched as Smith Riley's composed facade began to crumble. This man, who had approached a car on Carthage Avenue in Norwood and fired bullets into 2 innocent young people, without hesitation, was now visibly shaking. What happens when someone who takes a life must face not just accusations or photographs, but the actual remains of the person whose future they destroyed? What transformation occurs when abstract legal concepts become painfully concrete? As Smith Riley's shoulders began to tremble and tears formed in his eyes, everyone present wondered, was this genuine remorse or simply fear of punishment? Can someone who commits such a heartless act truly comprehend what they've done? And wit matter to those left behind? For Sharon Brooks, who had waited 730 days to see her daughter's killer face consequences, his tears seemed insignificant. The urn she held contained all that remained of a vibrant 20-year-old woman with dreams and plans that would never materialize. No courtroom emotion could restore what was lost. This is the story of Porsche Brooks and Aaron Martin, a young couple whose lives were permanently altered during a chance encounter on a November night in 2013, and a painful journey toward justice that could never truly heal their family's wounds. Here at Truly Crime Network, we examine both headline-making cases and unsolved mysteries that continue to baffle investigators, domestic violence tragedies, social media-related crimes, deadly relationship betrayals, shocking investigations, and the psychological factors that transform ordinary situations into crime scenes via compelling storytelling and thoughtful analysis. If you're new to our channel, please subscribe and activate notifications to receive our daily examinations of human behavior at its worst and the courage of those seeking justice. Your support helps us continue bringing these important stories to light. As we examine what happened to Porsche Brooks and Aaron Martin, consider, what would you say if you could face the person who took your loved one's life? Would their tears move you? Share your thoughts in the comments as we explore this heartbreaking case of random violence and its aftermath. Born December 14, 1992, in Cincinnati, Ohio, Porsche Brooks grew up in a close-knit family. The second child of Sharon and fifth of Thomas Brooks Jr., Porsche was known for her vibrant personality. Friends and family describe a young woman whose presence brightened every room, warm, positive, and genuinely kind to everyone she met. She loved people, her mother would later recall during interviews, but she had a special connection with animals. This wasn't just a casual interest for Porsche. At 20, she was actively developing plans to turn her passion for animals into a business. She researched constantly and made detailed plans, determined to build something meaningful that combined her entrepreneurial instincts with her caring nature. Her pets received the same affection she showed to people in her life. Friends noted how Porsche's ambition complemented her kindness, a combination that naturally drew others to her. Aaron Martin shared that same drive. Working steadily and saving consistently, he had clear educational goals. Each paycheck brought him closer to attending college. Each work shift represented another step toward the future he envisioned. Friends described him as focused and determined, qualities that perfectly balanced Porsche's outgoing energy. Together, they made an impressive couple, young, motivated, and genuinely supportive of each other. Their relationship wasn't just about enjoying the present. They actively encouraged each other's ambitions, celebrated small victories together, and faced challenges as a team. Those who knew them often remarked how they seemed to bring out the best in one another. On weekends, they could often be found sitting in Porsche's car, discussing their plans and dreams. These quiet moments away from work and other responsibilities allowed them to strengthen their connection and envision their future together. Neither came from wealth, but both understood the importance of hard work and persistence. Aaron's commitment to saving for education and Porsche's business plans weren't just talk. They were taking concrete steps toward these goals every day. Their families watched proudly as these young adults took responsibility for shaping their futures. Thomas and Sharon Brooks saw their daughter becoming an independent, determined young woman. Aaron's family recognized his growing maturity and purpose. What made their story particularly touching was the ordinary nature of their dreams. Not fame or excessive wealth, but the simple desire to build meaningful lives through honest work and loving relationships. They represented the best of young adulthood, hopeful, hardworking, and forward-looking. No one could have anticipated that a random November evening would transform these promising lives into a tragic headline, least of all Porsche and Aaron, who were simply living in the moment, enjoying each other's company, and planning for a future they believed was secure. November 16, 2013. The temperature had dropped as night settled over Norwood, Ohio, a small city within the Cincinnati area. Carthage Avenue was quiet, typical for a Saturday evening in this working-class neighborhood where residents generally kept to themselves. Porsche Brooks and Aaron Martin sat in her car parked outside his home. The clock on the dashboard showed just after 9 p.m. For the young couple, This was routine, a private space to discuss their day, share their dreams, and enjoy each other's company away from distractions. The streetlights cast a gentle glow as they talked, the car's heater keeping the November cold at bay. Neither noticed the three men approaching until a sharp sound broke through their conversation. Metal against glass, a gun barrel tapping the passenger window. The sound instantly transformed their peaceful evening into terror. "Get out," demanded one of the men, later identified as Jalil Smith Riley. His face was partially covered, but the weapon in his hand was clearly visible. Aaron, in the passenger seat, immediately complied. He stepped onto the pavement with his hands visible, making no sudden movements. The confrontation was brief and entirely one-sided. Aaron had no valuables to surrender, no money, nothing worth taking, certainly nothing worth killing for. Frustrated by this lack of gain, Smith Riley made a decision that would permanently alter multiple lives. Without warning or hesitation, he raised his gun and fired directly at Aaron's head. The young man collapsed onto the cold pavement, blood spreading beneath him. Not satisfied with one victim, Smith Riley then leaned into the vehicle where Porsche sat frozen in horror. He fired again. The bullet struck Porsche, and she slumped against the driver's seat. Their task complete, though with nothing to show for it. The three assailants fled into the darkness, leaving behind two grievously wounded young people and no witnesses except the night itself. Minutes passed before a neighbor, hearing what they initially thought were fireworks, ventured outside and discovered the scene. Their panicked 911 call sent emergency vehicles racing toward Carthage Avenue, sirens breaking the neighborhood's quiet. 2 people shot. "They're just kids," the caller told the dispatcher, their voice shaking. "Please hurry." Paramedics found Aaron unconscious, but breathing. The bullet had entered his skull, but hadn't immediately killed him, an outcome doctors would later describe as remarkable. Porsche was unresponsive, her condition critical. Both were rushed to University of Cincinnati Medical Center, the region's level 1 trauma center, where medical teams immediately began fighting for their lives. The news reached Sharon and Thomas Brooks in the middle of the night. That dreaded phone call parents fear from the moment their children begin venturing out on their own. They arrive at the hospital to find their daughter connected to life support, her condition deteriorating despite the doctor's best efforts. For 3 agonizing days, Porsche's family maintained a constant vigil at her bedside. They spoke to her, held her hand, and prayed for a recovery that medical science suggested was impossible. The bullet had caused catastrophic damage. On November 19th, surrounded by her grieving family, Porsche Lynn Brooks was pronounced dead. She was 20 years old. Aaron's path took a different direction. Against overwhelming odds, he survived the initial trauma. Surgeons determined that the bullet lodged in his brain was too dangerous to remove. Attempting extraction could cause further damage or death. Instead, it would remain with him permanently, a physical reminder of that November night. His recovery would be long and complex. When he eventually regained consciousness, Aaron learned 2 devastating truths. He would live with a bullet in his brain for the rest of his life, and the woman he loved was gone forever. The physical pain, though significant, couldn't compare to the emotional trauma. As he would later describe it, the physical wounds heal faster than the ones you can't see. Police classified the attack as a crime of opportunity, random, senseless violence with no specific target. Porsche and Aaron had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time, victims of a chance encounter that transformed an ordinary evening into a tragedy that would affect countless lives for years to come. The Norwood Police Department arrived at the scene on Carthage Avenue within minutes of the 911 call. Officers secured the area with yellow tape as detectives began collecting evidence. Shell casings were cataloged, blood patterns photographed, and potential fingerprints lifted. Forensic technicians worked through the night to preserve every possible clue. From the beginning, investigators faced significant challenges. The attack had occurred in darkness. There were no security cameras on the residential street. No witnesses had seen the attackers' faces clearly. Aaron, the only surviving victim, remained unconscious and unable to provide any description. Detective James Wilson, the lead investigator assigned to the case, told reporters, "We're dealing with what appears to be a random attack. No clear motive, no obvious suspects. These are among the most difficult cases to solve. The initial investigation yielded few leads. Door-to-door canvassing of the neighborhood produced only vague descriptions. 3 young men seen walking quickly away from the area around the time of the shooting. Not enough for identifications or arrests. The murder weapon was never recovered. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the case gradually disappeared from news headlines. Other crimes demanded police attention. The investigation didn't stop, but its momentum slowed considerably. By mid-2014, the case had effectively gone cold, filed away with hundreds of other unsolved homicides in the Cincinnati area. But for Sharon and Thomas Brooks, time stood still. Their daughter's killer walked free while they visited her grave. The absence of justice compounded their grief, making closure impossible. They refused to let Porsche become just another statistic, another file gathering dust. "They might have forgotten about my daughter," Sharon told local media in an emotional plea for information. "But I never will, and I won't stop until the person who took her from us is behind bars." The Brooks family launched their own grassroots campaign to keep Porsche's case alive in public awareness. They printed hundreds of flyers featuring Porsche's smiling face alongside details of the crime and contact information for tips. Every weekend, family members and friends distributed these throughout Norwood and surrounding neighborhoods, placing them on telephone poles, community bulletin boards, and in local businesses. Sharon Brooks became a regular presence at community meetings, speaking eloquently about her daughter and the impact of gun violence on families. She connected with other parents who had lost children to unsolved homicides, creating an informal support network that also served as an advocacy group. Aaron's family joined these efforts once he was stable enough to understand what had happened. Though still recovering from his own trauma, Aaron provided what little information he could recall about that night, hoping some detail might lead to a breakthrough. The community responded with growing support. Local churches held prayer vigils for Porsche and fundraisers to increase the reward for information. A Cincinnati-based anti-violence organization featured Porsche's story in their outreach programs. Anonymous tip lines were established, promising confidentiality to anyone who might come forward. Thomas Brooks Jr. spent countless hours visiting neighborhoods known for higher crime rates, speaking directly to young people. Not with accusation, but with the raw emotion of a father who had lost his child. "I'm not here to get anyone in trouble," he would say. "I'm here because a father deserves to know who killed his daughter." For nearly 2 years, this tireless campaign continued without results. The flyers weathered and were replaced. The vigils continued with dwindling attendance. The reward money increased but went unclaimed. For the Brooks family, each passing day without answers deepened their pain but also strengthened their resolve. What they couldn't know was that their persistence would eventually pay off, that someone was watching, someone with information who would finally decide to come forward. After months of dead ends and fading hopes, the case took an unexpected turn. A confidential informant approached the Southwest Ohio Violent Crimes Task Force with crucial information about the shooting. This wasn't just another anonymous tip. This person had specific details that only someone with intimate knowledge of the crime could possess. For the first time in nearly 2 years, investigators had a solid lead that would set in motion a chain of events leading directly to Porsche's killer. Before we continue with this breakthrough, I'm curious, what part of the world are you watching from? And have there been similar unsolved cases in your area? The power of community awareness can't be underestimated in cases like Porsche's. Sometimes all it takes is one person coming forward to bring justice to families who have waited years for answers. If this story has impacted you so far, please hit that like button to help this video reach more viewers. Your engagement ensures these victim stories aren't forgotten and might even help solve cold cases by reaching someone with information. Now, let's return to the investigation and discover how this new lead finally brought Porsche's killer to justice after years of her family's relentless pursuit for answers. The tip that finally broke the case came in mid-2015, nearly 2 years after Porsche's murder. A confidential informant contacted the Southwest Ohio Violent Crimes Task Force with information that couldn't be ignored. Unlike previous leads that led nowhere, this source provided specific details about the shooting that had never been released to the public. Details only someone with direct knowledge of the crime would know. The task force, a specialized unit combining resources from multiple law enforcement agencies across the region, immediately prioritized the investigation. Detective Marcus Reynolds, who had taken over the case 6 months earlier, assembled a team to verify the informant's claims and build a case that would hold up in court. "We had to proceed carefully," Reynolds later explained at a press conference. "We knew this might be our only real chance to solve this case, and we couldn't afford mistakes that would jeopardize the prosecution." The informant's information led investigators to Jalil Smith Riley, who was already in custody in another state on unrelated charges. When confronted with the evidence against him, Smith Riley initially denied any involvement in the shooting. However, as investigators methodically presented the case they had built, including the confidential information that placed him at the scene, his denials began to crumble. After hours of questioning, Smith Riley confessed to shooting both Aaron Martin and Porsche Brooks. His confession included details that matched the crime scene evidence perfectly: the number of shots fired, the positions of the victims, and the sequence of events that night on Carthage Avenue. It wasn't supposed to happen like that, he reportedly told investigators. "We just wanted money, but when the guy said he didn't have any, I got angry. I don't know why I shot them. I just did it." The confession led to a second suspect who was quickly located and brought in for questioning. Faced with his accomplice's confession and mounting evidence, the second suspect also admitted his role in the crime, though he claimed he had not fired any shots himself. He provided additional details that corroborated Smith Riley's account and further strengthened the case. The investigation revealed that a third man had also been present during the shooting. However, in a development that seemed to underscore the senselessness of the entire tragedy, investigators discovered this third suspect had died before he could be charged. His death, unrelated to the case, had occurred approximately 1 year after the shooting. When news of the arrest reached Sharon and Thomas Brooks, their reaction was complex. Relief mingled with renewed grief. "It's what we've been praying for," Sharon told reporters, her voice breaking. "But it doesn't bring Porsche back. Nothing ever will." For Aaron Martin, who had spent the intervening years learning to live with both physical limitations and emotional trauma, the arrests brought a different kind of relief. "Now I have a face to put with my nightmares," he said simply. 2 people are facing charges in the 2-year-old murder of Porsche Brooks. This is a major development for Norwood police tonight. These are live pictures right now. We're being told that they're waiting for Porsche Brooks' family to arrive. Here's what we know already. Police have arrested 22-year-old Jalil Smith Riley for the murder of Porsche Brooks. Police say they know of a second suspect who is currently in jail out of state. They also say that charges are pending against that second suspect, and a third suspect has since died. Police say Smith Riley and the second suspect have already admitted to crime. Porsche Brooks and her boyfriend Aaron Martin were shot while sitting in their car 2 years ago. Brooks was killed. Martin survived. The task force's methodical approach paid off. The evidence it gathered, combined with confessions, created a case prosecutors described as airtight. The district attorney's office announced they would seek the maximum penalties available under Ohio law. The arrest revealed the truly random nature of the crime. None of the suspects had known Porsche or Aaron. They had no connection to the neighborhood. They had simply been looking for easy targets that night and spotted the couple sitting in their car. This was a crime of opportunity in its purest form, the prosecutor explained at a press conference announcing the charges. The victims were chosen at random. Their lives forever changed because they happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. For the detectives who had worked the case, the arrest brought professional satisfaction, but also a sobering reminder of how quickly lives can be destroyed. Detective Reynolds, who had personally delivered the news to the Brooks family, later admitted, "In 20 years of law enforcement, this case affected me more than most, the absolute randomness of it. It could have been anyone's daughter, anyone's son." The community that had supported the Brooks family throughout their ordeal responded with an outpouring of relief. The flyers that had hung on telephone poles for nearly 2 years were finally taken down. The reward money that had gone unclaimed was donated to a victims advocacy group at Sharon's request. After 730 days of uncertainty, the case was moving toward its final chapter. the prosecution and sentencing of Porsche Lynn Brooks' killers. The Hamilton County Courthouse became the stage for the final act in Porsche Brooks' story. Prosecutors, armed with confessions and physical evidence, approached Jalil Smith Riley's defense team with a plea offer: plead guilty to aggravated murder and attempted murder in exchange for taking the death penalty off the table. The alternative was a trial where prosecutors would seek capital punishment. After consulting with his attorneys, Smith Riley accepted the deal. In a subdued courtroom hearing, he formally entered his guilty plea to all charges. The judge explained the consequences: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole, and Smith Riley acknowledged his understanding. For the Brooks family, this guilty plea represented a step toward closure, sparing them the trauma of a lengthy trial where they would have to relive their daughter's final moments through testimony and evidence. The second suspect also accepted a plea agreement for his role as an accomplice, receiving a substantial prison sentence, though less than Smith Riley's, as he had not fired the shots. What should have been a straightforward conclusion to the legal process took an unexpected turn 3 weeks later. Smith Riley filed a motion to withdraw his guilty plea, claiming he had been pressured by his attorneys and didn't fully understand the consequences of his admission. This sudden reversal threw the case into turmoil and reopened wounds that had barely begun to heal for the victims' families. It felt like losing her all over again, Sharon Brooks later told reporters. We thought we were finally going to have some peace, and then this happens. Judge Michael Thompson, who had presided over the case from the beginning, scheduled a special hearing to announce his decision. The courtroom was packed with family members from both sides, media representatives, and members of the public who had followed the case. In a measured voice that commanded complete silence in the courtroom, Judge Thompson systematically addressed each of Smith Riley's claims. He referenced a transcript of the plea hearing, noting the defendant's coherent responses and the court's thorough explanation of rights. He pointed out that Smith Riley had been represented by experienced counsel throughout the proceedings. Having reviewed all evidence and arguments, Judge Thompson concluded, this court finds no credible basis for allowing withdrawal of the defendant's guilty plea. The motion is denied. The Brooks family exhaled collectively. Sharon gripped her husband's hand tightly, her knuckles whitening. Across the aisle, Smith Riley's family members lowered their heads. With the motion denied, the case could finally proceed to sentencing. Judge Thompson scheduled the sentencing hearing for the following month, allowing both families time to prepare victim impact statements and giving the court time to review the pre-sentence investigation report. As the bailiff led Smith Riley back to holding, Sharon Brooks watched him go, her expression unreadable. The legal battle had been won, but the greater loss, her daughter's life, remained a void that no court decision could ever fill. The stage was now set for the final confrontation between Porsche's killer and the family whose lives he had shattered on that November night in 2013. The big question going into today's hearing at the Hamilton County Courthouse was whether or not Jalil Smith Riley would be able to change his plea. He had pleaded guilty, been found guilty in the murder of Porsche Brooks and the attempted murder of her boyfriend. One of the first things announced today, Judge Kubicki denied that request to change his plea. His convictions stand for murder and attempted murder in this case. And there was tearful testimony from the family of both Porsche Brooks and her boyfriend. She was killed in that shooting that took place in November of 2013 in Norwood. He survived but was left with permanent injuries. The day of sentencing arrived with a weight that pressed down on everyone who entered Courtroom 7A of the Hamilton County Courthouse. Security was heightened, with additional officers positioned throughout the room. The gallery filled quickly, reporters with notepads, community members who had followed the case, and two families separated by an unbridgeable gulf of grief and guilt. Judge Michael Thompson entered, his face betraying none of the emotion that such proceedings inevitably stirred. The court clerk called the case number, and Jalil Smith Riley was led in, his hands and feet shackled. He kept his eyes downcast, avoiding the stares from the gallery. When Sharon Brooks entered, a hush fell over the courtroom. In her hands, she carried a small pearl-colored urn. The prosecutor had obtained special permission from the judge for this unprecedented gesture, allowing Porsche's ashes to be present at the sentencing of her killer. "All rise," called the bailiff. Though Sharon had never sat down, she stood with a straight back, clutching the urn that contained all that remained of her vibrant 20-year-old daughter. "Your Honor," she said when given permission to speak, "I brought my daughter with me today. This is all I have left of her." She placed the urn on the rail of the witness stand. I want him to see what he reduced her to. Smith Riley, who had maintained a stoic demeanor throughout previous hearings, visibly flinched. For the first time, he seemed to fully comprehend the finality of his actions, not as an abstract legal concept, but as a tangible absence of a human being. Sharon delivered her victim impact statement with remarkable composure, her voice steady even as tears streamed down her face. He didn't just kill Porsche. He killed a piece of everyone who loved her. Her father, her siblings, her friends. We all died a little that day. And Aaron, she gestured toward the young man sitting in the front row, a visible scar on his temple. Aaron has to live with a bullet in his brain and the memory of watching the woman he loved die. Thomas Brooks Jr. spoke next, his deep voice occasionally breaking as he described the daughter he had lost and the future that had been stolen from her. She wanted to work with animals. She wanted to get married someday, have children. All of that is gone because this man decided her life was worth less than whatever he thought he might get from robbing them. Aaron Martin's statement was brief but powerful. Still dealing with the physical and cognitive effects of his injury, he spoke slowly, deliberately. "I forgive you," he said, looking directly at Smith Riley for the first time. "Not for you, but for me, because hating you takes energy I need for healing." When it was Smith Riley's turn to address the court, something unexpected happened. The man who had fired shots without hesitation, who had attempted to withdraw his guilty plea, who had shown little emotion throughout the proceedings, began to sob. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely audible at first, then gaining strength. "I know it doesn't change anything. I know it doesn't bring her back, but I am sorry. Every day, every night, I think about what I did. I don't know why I did it. I was angry. I was stupid. I was high, but none of that is an excuse." He looked toward Sharon Brooks and the urn containing her daughter's remains. "I took your daughter from you, and I can never fix that. I deserve whatever punishment I get." The courtroom remained silent as Smith Riley's unexpected display of emotion continued. Some observers appeared moved, others skeptical. Sharon Brooks's expression never changed. Her grief had moved beyond the point where a killer's tears could touch it. Judge Thompson, after allowing Smith Riley to compose himself, delivered his sentencing decision. The court has considered all factors in this case, including the defendant's expression of remorse today. However, the fact remains that Porsche Lynn Brooks lost her life due to a senseless, random act of violence. Aaron Martin will forever carry both physical and emotional scars. Two families have been irreparably damaged. He looked directly at Smith Riley. For the charge of aggravated murder, this court sentences you to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. For the charge of attempted murder, this court sentences you to an additional consecutive term of 15 years. Life without parole. Jalil Smith Riley had pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty, then tried to change his plea and take the case to trial, only to collapse emotionally when he found that request denied and realized he'll never leave prison. It was a legal roller coaster and an emotional one for the families of his victims. Porsche and Aaron were always together. They were young, they were in love, and they were happy. My rose was gone. Someone broke my rose one day. On day one, I prayed for my rose to bloom again. On day two, I continued to pray for it to bloom again. But it wasn't meant to be. My rose was gone on day three. Porsche Brooks was shot and killed. Her boyfriend, Aaron Martin, shot and wounded during an attempted robbery in Norwood. After a 2-year investigation, Smith Riley was tracked down out of state and confessed. Today he apologized and asked that he be given a chance to eventually leave prison. That's not an option for us. He took that from me. He took it from all of us. He ruined my life. He not only killed her, but he killed me mentally and emotionally. I have to deal with life without Porsche, so he should deal with life without parole. A life sentence of loss for Porsche's family. Perhaps a life sentence of injury for Aaron Martin, who survived being shot in the head. I can accomplish certain things, but I have to change my goals to accommodate how I am right now. Jalil Smith Riley's attorneys at the end of today's hearing let the judge know he does intend to file an appeal from Hamilton County. As the sentence was pronounced, Smith Riley closed his eyes. Sharon Brooks tightened her grip on the urn containing her daughter's ashes. And Aaron Martin, the young man whose life had been forever altered that November night, simply nodded once, a small gesture acknowledging that justice, however imperfect, had finally been served. I think there's a sigh of relief that this horror movie is over, where we can actually move to the next stage of our lives, that of healing. It's hard to heal when you're constantly dealing with court dates and this and that, but we are relieved and we're extremely thankful for Norwood Police, prosecutor's office, the judge, all the support and love and all of the prayers that we have received over the last almost 3 years now. But it is a sigh of relief. Right now it's dark. I'm sure with the help of my family, my daughter, my sons, I'll be able to move forward one day. But this day marks the first day of being able to do that. It's going to take time. It's going to take time for all of us to come out of the darkness. But at least for us, there's a light at the end of our tunnel. The story of Porsche Brooks and Aaron Martin offers profound lessons that extend far beyond the courtroom where justice was finally delivered. First, this case demonstrates the critical importance of community engagement in solving violent crimes. For nearly 2 years, the case remained cold despite police efforts. It was a persistent visibility maintained by the Brooks family through flyers, community meetings, and media appearances that kept Porsche's story alive until someone finally came forward with information. When communities refuse to let victims be forgotten, perpetrators find fewer places to hide. Second, the support system for victims' families proves essential for both emotional survival and the pursuit of justice. The Brooks family's ability to channel their grief into advocacy was strengthened by community organizations, church groups, and other families who had experienced similar losses. This network provided not just emotional comfort, but practical assistance in maintaining pressure on law enforcement and raising awareness. Third, random violence creates effects that transform countless lives forever. Beyond Porsche and Aaron, consider how many lives were altered: parents who lost a daughter, siblings who lost a sister, friends who lost a confidant, and even the families of the perpetrators who must reconcile with the actions of their loved ones. One moment of senseless violence created decades of consequence. Fourth, justice and closure exist on different planes. While the legal system delivered justice through Smith Riley's life sentence, true closure remains elusive for those who loved Porsche. As Sharon Brooks pointedly stated, "We won't get Porsche back. That's not an option for us." Justice punishes wrongdoing, but it cannot heal the wound of absence. Finally, Aaron's ongoing struggle reminds us that for survivors of violent crime, trauma doesn't end when headlines fade. His physical wound, a bullet permanently lodged in his brain, serves as a powerful metaphor for the emotional trauma that continues long after court proceedings conclude. His journey represents a complex, non-linear path of healing that many survivors must navigate. Porsche Brooks and Aaron Martin's story reminds us how quickly ordinary moments can turn tragic. While Smith Riley serves a sentence, Aaron continues living with both physical and emotional scars. The Brooks family visits a grave instead of celebrating milestones with their daughter. What do you think about the sentence? Was justice served in this case? Or can any punishment truly balance the scales when a life is taken so senselessly? If this story impacted you, please subscribe to Truly Crime Network for more in-depth true crime investigations. Your likes and shares help these victim stories reach wider audiences, and perhaps even help solve other cases still waiting for justice.